Welcome to Crushed Husband. Please like the video and subscribe. Let's begin. The maitre d' looked up at me with a confused smile and said, "Sorry, there's no reservation under that name." I blinked. "Could you check again? It should be under Megan or Adam." He tapped at the screen. "I've got nothing under either." Right then I felt it, that tightening in my chest, the heat rising to my ears. I was overdressed, standing in the entrance of this trendy little French place in downtown Charleston, clutching my coat like it was the only thing keeping me from unraveling. "Of course there's no reservation for you," came a sharp voice behind me. I turned. It was Megan, my mother-in-law, in her signature blazer, hair so tightly coiled it looked sculpted. She had that little smirk I knew too well. "This dinner's for family," she added, loudly enough for the nearby hostess to hear. "You were never really invited." I swallowed hard. "Adam told me 7 o'clock. Same place as always." "Oh, did he?" she said with fake surprise, before turning to someone behind her. "Adam, did you forget to mention that we had to make some last-minute adjustments to the guest list?" Adam, my husband, standing there in his tailored navy suit, hands stuffed in his pockets like he'd rather vanish into the floor than deal with any of this. He looked up briefly. It was tight seating. They didn't have a table for 9. 8, Megan corrected with a sly grin. "We're a table of 8. I let out a breath through my nose, trying to hold on to what was left of my dignity. Behind them, Adam's sisters, Chelsea and Brianna, exchanged smug little glances, like this was just the latest episode of their favorite sitcom. "This is ridiculous," I said quietly, stepping to the side so I wouldn't block the entrance. "You knew I was coming." Megan shrugged. "Well, you just assumed, didn't you? That's always been your problem." I could feel the eyes on me, from the hostess, from the couple waiting behind me, from the servers passing by with trays of wine and artfully arranged plates. I hated that I felt my throat tighten. I hated even more that I couldn't stop it. I turned to Adam again, searching his face for something. An ounce of discomfort, a flicker of support. He shifted his gaze to the ground. "Seriously?" I asked him. He rubbed the back of his neck. "I didn't want to make a scene." I laughed, just once, short and bitter. "Right, heaven forbid someone make a scene." Megan gave a small chuckle, then looked to the maitre d' as if this was all just unfortunate confusion. "We'll be seated now." "Thanks so much." They walked past me like I was invisible. I stood there another second, cheeks burning, unsure what to do. Leave? Chase after them? Go sit by myself in the bar and pretend this didn't just happen? I turned back to the maitre d', forcing my voice to stay calm. "Would you mind calling the owner for me?" He looked surprised. "Excuse me?" I leaned in, lowering my voice. "Daniel, he runs the place. Tell him it's me. Just say my name. He'll know who I am." The maitre d's brows lifted just slightly. "Right away," he said, and stepped away toward the back. Megan had just finished settling into her seat at the center of the table when she noticed I was still there, waiting calmly by the door. She gave me one last smirk. "Honestly," she said, lifting her wine glass, "some people just don't know when they're not welcome." She thought she'd won, but the thing was, I'd been underestimated before, and I wasn't in the mood to let it slide this time. The maitre d' reappeared a minute later. His whole expression changed. "He's on his way," he said, almost polite now. Before I could ask who he meant, a familiar voice rang out from the kitchen entrance. "Where's the fire?" came the easy, confident drawl. And then, just like that, Daniel walked into the dining room, wiping his hands on a clean towel tucked into his apron. His hair was streaked with gray now, and he looked sharper than I remembered. Older, yes, but still every bit the king of the room. I didn't say a word, just raised an eyebrow. Daniel froze, stared for half a second, then burst into a wide grin. "Well, I'll be damned." He crossed the floor in 3 long strides and pulled me into a hug before I even had a chance to react. "How long's it been?" he asked, pulling back to study my face. 7 years, I said. "Maybe 8. He shook his head. "Not a damn wrinkle on you. You still in kitchens?" "No," I said with a shrug. "Not since I moved here, started my own thing." Daniel let out a low whistle. "Good for you. I always knew you'd outgrow the line." Behind me, I heard chairs scraping the floor and murmuring. Megan's voice was sharp. "What's going on here?" Daniel turned, still smiling, but now with a note of command in his voice. "I was told this gentleman wasn't on the reservation." "That's correct," Megan said quickly, standing with a stiff sort of grace. "We're having a private dinner. Family only. Daniel blinked at her like she'd said something strange. Well, maybe next time, let the family know they're turning away one of my best proteges. Megan's mouth twitched. Excuse me? He trained here, Daniel said, clapping a hand on my shoulder. 5 years under me. Sous chef in less than 2. Could have taken over my kitchen if he hadn't left to build something better. Megan blinked. What? You eat here often? Daniel asked, cutting her off. Occasionally, she sniffed. Well, then you've tasted his influence whether you realized it or not. His risotto recipe, we still use it. That pork belly dish your daughter-in-law orders, his idea. This place owes a lot to him. I glanced at Adam. He looked stunned. Still silent, but stunned. Megan tried to recover. Well, that's very nice, but this isn't really the place for old coworkers to catch up. Daniel looked directly at her. With all due respect, ma'am, if this man isn't welcome at your table, then your table's no longer welcome at my restaurant. Dead silence. I think the entire front half of the dining room froze. Chelsea choked on her water. Brianna's mouth fell open. Megan stared at Daniel like she couldn't believe what she was hearing. That's absurd. No, Daniel said, folding his arms. What's absurd is dragging someone's name through the dirt in a restaurant they helped build. In front of my staff. In front of me. Megan's tone changed. It got sugary. Look, we've had a misunderstanding, that's all. Daniel raised his hand. It's fine. You don't have to backpedal. He turned to the maitre d'. Set an extra place, center table, put him wherever he wants. I didn't look at Megan when I walked past her, but I could feel the heat radiating off her like a radiator in a sealed room. As I approached the table, Adam finally looked up. I stopped beside him. Funny thing, I said, just loud enough for Megan to hear. You all thought I didn't belong here, but this place, it's part of my story. Yours too, if you'd ever bothered to ask. Megan's voice was clipped. Well, we didn't know. I met her eyes. Number, you didn't care to. Daniel pulled out a chair for me, like I was royalty. I'll send something special over, he said. The new seasonal scallop starter, still got your touch on it. I smiled. Looking forward to it. Megan sat down with a forceful thud, lips drawn into a tight line. She didn't say another word, and for the first time since the night began, I sat at the table with my back straight, my hands steady. Not because I had something to prove, but because I didn't have to anymore. The waiter returned with polished silverware and a fresh plate, carefully setting it down in the only empty spot at the table, right next to Adam. Megan's face twitched when he laid the napkin across my lap like I was royalty. Will this seat work for you, sir? He asked with a professional smile. I nodded. Perfect. Adam didn't look at me, not even a glance. The rest of the table had gone quiet, which was rare for his family. Usually they chirped and buzzed through every meal, sipping wine and interrupting one another like it was a contest. Not tonight. Megan reached for her glass and took a long sip of white wine, her jaw tight, her fingers stiff. So, she said finally, how long have you known Daniel again? Since before this place opened, I said calmly, resting my elbows on the table. I helped him write the first menu draft. He still calls me when he's stuck on seasonal rotations. Brianna let out a little laugh, like she didn't believe me. But she didn't say a word. Chelsea shifted in her seat and nudged her husband, who suddenly found the menu extremely interesting. The waiter returned with the first course, Daniel's signature scallop dish, and placed one in front of me with extra care. Chef said this is on the house. He said to tell you he still uses your plating trick. I smiled. Tell him I said he's welcome. The aroma hit the table like a wave, rich and buttery and impossible to ignore. Even Megan stopped mid-sentence to glance at my plate. She didn't get one, neither did anyone else. I cut a piece of scallop and took a bite, savoring it slowly. Perfect crust, I said, mostly to myself. He finally got the temp right. Megan bristled. Well, that's charming. I leaned back in my chair and looked her directly in the eyes. You tried to humiliate me tonight. Her fork paused midair. Excuse me? You went out of your way to make sure I knew I wasn't welcome here, in front of the staff, in front of your own son. Adam finally glanced my way, his face unreadable. You didn't need to make a scene, Megan said, her tone clipped. I smiled. I didn't. You did. And now here we are, me, sitting at the table you tried to lock me out of, and you, picking at a salad while I eat the best thing on the menu. Adam cleared his throat like he wanted to say something, but didn't. I turned to him. You could have said something, you know. He looked back down at his water glass, and that was the moment it hit me. It wasn't just Megan, it was all of them, him included. The silence said more than any of their carefully curated jabs ever could. I picked up my wine and clinked it gently against the rim of my plate. Here's to being exactly where I belong. Megan didn't speak for the rest of the course, but the rage in her eyes, that said enough. The server cleared our appetizer plates with a quiet nod, offering refills we all politely declined. Megan hadn't touched her scallop dish. Her fork had sat motionless the entire time, as if eating would admit defeat. I leaned back in my chair, sipping my wine. The atmosphere had shifted, no longer just tense, but crackling. The balance of power at the table had changed, and Megan knew it. She just hadn't figured out how to flip it back yet. So, she said finally, her tone syrupy, you've certainly made an impression tonight. How enterprising of you. I glanced at her. Thanks. That almost sounded like a compliment. It wasn't, she replied, setting down her glass. You've always been good at making things look more impressive than they really are. I raised an eyebrow. Go on. Megan folded her hands like she was prepping for a board meeting. You work in food, or you used to. That's fine. But let's not pretend it's the same as what the rest of us do. This family operates at a different level. We invest. We grow wealth. We create legacies. You, well, she gave a tight-lipped smile. You cook. I almost laughed. Before I could respond, she kept going. And don't think I haven't noticed how convenient your marriage has been. Adam's done very well for himself. Very well. And you married into that. So forgive me if I'm a little skeptical about what you bring to the table beyond culinary anecdotes. Brianna chuckled. Chelsea covered her smirk with a napkin. I felt Adam stiffen beside me, but he still didn't say a word. I set my glass down gently. You want to talk about wealth, Megan? Legacies? She tilted her head like a cat watching a cornered mouse. By all means. Okay, I said. Let's start with Adam's first fund, the one that launched everything. You remember that one? She blinked, unsure where I was going. Of course, it did very well. It did, I nodded, because I fronted the seed capital. The table went still. I'm sorry? Megan asked, laughing softly. You? That's right. Every investor Adam pitched turned him down. Too young, too green, too theoretical. So I wrote the first check. I built the pitch deck. I helped restructure the entire strategy before he even met with his current partners. You know the Rothwell portfolio? I brought in that contact. I'd cooked for his family years earlier. He took the meeting because of me. Megan's smile faltered. But sure, I said casually. Let's keep pretending I married for the money. Adam shifted beside me, jaw clenched, eyes flicking between me and his mother. Megan cleared her throat. That's quite a story. It's not a story, I said flatly. It's a fact. Every one of Adam's early investments ran through my account first. I've still got the wire receipts. Why would you do that? She asked, her voice lower now, more careful. I shrugged. Because I believed in him. I thought we were building something together. No one said a word. Chelsea dropped her fork. Brianna was suddenly very interested in her glass of water. Adam opened his mouth, then closed it again. I turned to him. You've never told them, have you? His mouth twitched. It didn't seem relevant. No, I said, staring at him. I bet it didn't. Megan looked shaken now, her control slipping. You expect us to believe that Adam owes his success to you? I don't care what you believe, I said. I know what I built, and deep down, so does he. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. The silence that followed did more damage than yelling ever could. Megan leaned back, clearly rattled. You're very proud of yourself tonight, aren't you? I picked up my wine glass again and smiled. No, Megan. I'm just tired of pretending you get to define who matters and who doesn't. For the first time in her life, she had nothing to say. Adam just sat there, staring straight ahead, like he was watching his entire world tilt sideways. And maybe he was. The ride home from the restaurant was dead silent. Adam sat beside me in the car, his arms crossed, eyes fixed out the passenger window like the streetlights were more interesting than anything I might say. I didn't push him to speak. I'd done that too many times over the years, tugged at his sleeve in the middle of uncomfortable moments, whispered for backup when Megan got out of line, waited for him to say something that never came. But tonight, something cracked open. And the silence didn't feel like awkward tension anymore. It felt like clarity. When we got home, he headed straight for the kitchen. I followed, standing by the island while he poured himself a glass of water, like we hadn't just lived through a public humiliation turned interrogation. "So," I said, voice calm, "you're really not going to say anything about tonight?" He didn't turn around. "What do you want me to say?" I stared at his back. "Anything." He finally faced me, glass in hand. "You gotta prove your point. Megan looked like an idiot. You won. What else do you need?" "I don't need to win," I said. "I need to know why you let your mother treat me like that, for years. Why you watched me get blindsided tonight and said nothing. Again." He shook his head, like I was being dramatic. "You handled it." "I shouldn't have had to," I snapped. "You were right there, and you just sat there. Like you always do." He didn't respond. "I defended you," I continued. "Built you up when no one believed in you, funded your career, cleaned up after every bad pitch, every investor meeting that went nowhere, every time Megan told you to give up." He flinched a little at that one. "And when she attacked me, your husband, you sat there pretending it wasn't your place to speak. You know what she's like," he said softly. I took a step forward. "Yeah, I do. And I also know what it means when someone chooses silence over you." He looked up at me, his voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't mean to hurt you." "But you did," I said. "Not just tonight. Every time you let her interrupt me, dismiss me, talk over me like I wasn't even in the room. Every time you laughed it off when I told you it bothered me. Every time you acted like staying out of it made you neutral." I could feel something inside me harden, solidifying into resolve. "It didn't make you neutral, Adam. It made you complicit." He opened his mouth, then shut it again. His eyes darted to the counter behind me, anywhere but mine. "I've spent years carrying this marriage," I said, "paying for things, covering for you, taking the blows your family threw at me while you stood there pretending your hands were clean. I didn't ask you to do any of that," he mumbled. I stared at him. "Exactly." I walked past him, toward the stairs, my voice steady now. "I'm done." He turned. "Wait, what?" "I'm done carrying us," I said. "You never chose me, not once. And I finally realized I've been choosing someone who was never even in the ring." "Where are you going?" he asked, eyes wide. "To pack," I said. "There's a suitcase in the hall closet. Shouldn't take long." He didn't move, just stood there, blinking like someone had yanked the floor out from under him. And the part that hurt the most? He still didn't stop me. I got home before Adam. The house was dark, still. My shoes echoed on the hardwood as I stepped inside, the kind of quiet that always used to feel peaceful. Tonight, it felt like the air was waiting to change. I walked straight into the office. The safe was behind a painting, something abstract Adam's sister gave us last Christmas. I pushed it aside and crouched. My fingers hesitated on the dial for a second, then moved with a strange calm. I knew the combination. I'd known it for years. He never changed it, never even thought to. When the door swung open, I found what I was looking for in the second folder from the top, Capshore Holdings. Equity agreement, initial capital partnership. My name, my bank, my signature. Right there in black and white, the document that tied Adam's crown jewel to my original investment. I snapped a photo with my phone and flipped through the rest, finding the corresponding quarterly statements with my name still listed in the financial notes as the original investor of record. He never removed it, probably forgot, or maybe never thought it mattered. I closed the safe and stood up, heart steady. I wasn't mad. I wasn't even hurt anymore. I was just clear. Back upstairs, I opened the closet and pulled out the large suitcase we'd only used once, on our anniversary trip to Maui. The irony made me pause, but only for a second. I packed with efficiency, no drama, just what I needed, a few clothes, my laptop, passport, chargers. I was already gone in my head. In the hallway, I passed the wedding photo. I didn't look at it. Adam came through the front door just as I zipped up the bag. He called my name softly, like someone creeping into a hospital room. I stepped out into the hall and met his eyes. He froze when he saw the suitcase. "You're really going?" he asked. "I told you I was done," I said. "This isn't a threat, Adam. It's a decision." He swallowed hard, stepping closer. "Can we talk? Just slow down." I shook my head. "Number. You've had years to talk." He looked at the bag again, then at me, his voice brittle. What about the firm? The accounts? I smiled, just a little. You should check your safe. What? He blinked. I was just in there. Reminded myself of something you seem to forget. I'm still listed as your primary capital partner, on the record. In writing, he looked stunned. You kept that? No, I said. You did. His face went pale. That's not fair. Neither was this marriage, I said, lifting the handle on the suitcase. He stepped back like he didn't know what to say, and for once, I didn't feel the need to fill the silence. I'm staying at the condo downtown, I said. I'll have my lawyer send the preliminary paperwork in the morning. And that's it? He whispered. I paused at the door. You should have stood up for me, Adam. Instead, you just stood there. Then I walked out, and this time, I didn't look back. 3 days passed without a word, no texts, no calls, no emails, nothing. And then on the fourth night, I heard the knock, not loud, not frantic, just steady, like someone waiting for a verdict they already feared. I opened the condo door and found Adam standing there, dressed in one of his tailored suits like he had come straight from a meeting, but his face didn't match the outfit. His eyes were red-rimmed, his hair messy, and for once, he didn't look like the polished version of himself he'd spent years building. Can we talk? He asked quietly. I stepped aside. You've got 5 minutes. He walked in like he wasn't sure he should, his eyes flicking around the unfamiliar space. He sat on the edge of the couch, hands clasped in front of him, like a man confessing at church. I read the contract, he said finally, the capture agreement. I didn't respond. You never told me you still had majority stake. I didn't need to, I said. You never asked. His jaw tightened. You knew that gave you leverage. I leaned against the kitchen counter. No, Adam, it gave me protection from exactly this. He rubbed his face. So this is just, what? A business deal gone bad? I laughed once. This was never about business. It was about trust, and you broke it long before I ever opened that safe. I didn't know you felt this way, he said. You didn't want to know, I replied. He looked up at me. I didn't stop you from leaving because I was in shock. No, I said. You didn't stop me because it was easier. He opened his mouth to argue, then stopped himself. I walked over, sat down across from him. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you defended me to your mother? He blinked. I don't know. Exactly, I said. You let her twist the knife every single time. You never stopped her. You never said a word. She's difficult. She's cruel, I corrected. Adam looked down. I didn't know what to say. And that's the problem, I said. You've built your life on avoiding discomfort, on letting other people fight your battles. You let me be your shield, your investor, your support system. But when I needed you to just speak up, you vanished. His voice broke. I didn't want to lose you. I shook my head. You lost me the second you made me feel like I didn't matter. We sat there for a moment in the thickest silence I'd ever known. Then I stood up, walked to the side table, and opened the folder I'd prepared that morning. I handed it to him. What is this? Final settlement offer, I said. It relinquishes my majority stake after the divorce is finalized. You'll keep the firm. I don't want it. He stared at the document. Why would you do that? Because I'm not like you, I said. I don't need to control things to walk away clean. I just want out. His eyes welled up. So that's it? Yeah, I said, nodding slowly. That's it. He looked at me one last time. The real kind of look. The kind someone gives when they finally realize what they had, and how completely they blew it. You really meant everything, he whispered. I didn't answer. I just opened the door. Adam walked out without saying another word, and I closed the door behind him, knowing I'd never open it again. The elevator doors slid open with a soft chime, and I stepped into the marble-tiled hallway of my attorney's office. Sunlight poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting long shadows across the dark furniture. It felt peaceful, clean. Melissa greeted me with a smile from behind the glass reception desk. He's waiting for you. I nodded, smoothed my sleeves, and walked into the conference room. My attorney, Grace, was already seated at the end of the polished table. Her blazer hung neatly on the back of her chair, her tablet beside a manila folder. She didn't stand, just slid the folder toward me with the kind of confidence I'd grown to appreciate. It's done, she said simply. I opened the folder and scanned the top page. Final divorce decree. My name. Adam's name. The signatures. The date. A month had passed since I left that house, and now it was over. I exhaled through my nose and leaned back in the chair. That fast? Grace nodded. The contract you pulled from the safe shut down every argument he tried to make. He forfeited most asset claims just to avoid that document going public. I let out a short laugh. Of course he did. She closed the folder gently. You held all the cards. You always did. I looked out the window for a second, watching the cars snake down the street below. Funny how long it took me to realize that. Grace stood and held out a glass of champagne. To fresh starts. I clinked my glass against hers and took a sip. It tasted light, crisp, like closure. She packed up her tablet and nodded toward the exit. You're free to go. Call if he tries anything, but I doubt he will. I doubt it too. I left the office and walked the 3 blocks back to my building. The city felt different today. Not just because the divorce was final, but because something in me had shifted, like I was standing straighter, breathing deeper. When I got to the penthouse, I kicked off my shoes, loosened my collar, and stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching the sky turn pink over the skyline. I didn't feel heartbroken. I didn't feel bitter. I felt still. Then my phone buzzed on the counter. Adam. His name lit up my screen like it had for years, but now it meant nothing. I picked up the phone, stared at it for a beat, and hit block. No message, no second thoughts, no drama, just a clean cut. I set the phone down and poured myself a second glass of champagne. Somewhere out there, I knew Adam was spinning, maybe trying to spin the story to his mother, maybe pacing around that giant house, wondering how it all slipped through his fingers. But that wasn't my problem anymore. He had his silence, and I finally had my freedom. I sat on the balcony as the sun dipped below the city, a soft breeze brushing across my skin. My life wasn't perfect, not yet, but it was mine now. Fully, finally mine. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was holding my breath for someone else to choose me. I'd already chosen myself.